So, welcome everybody. Uh, we're really excited to lay out some of the things that we've been working on behind the scenes. Um, this lecture is called A Vision for the Future of Traditional Acupuncture Education. I want to make a clarification to begin with. Um, this is something I think that the BAAB and the BAcC are extremely excited about, and Nina and I, as the uh, Nina as the lead accreditation officer of BAAB and me as CEO of the BAcC, we're really honored and privileged to communicate this work that's been done
Yeah,
behind the scenes, and also communicate a bit of the excitement that Nina and I have of what we think can be achieved and can be built on. So I think many of us in our community have uh, a lot of passionate opinions about traditional acupuncture education and their own vision. So this isn't something where we're going to be giving a comprehensive vision. It's communicating what we're really excited about, what we can support in the future. But this is the start of a conversation, not an end of one. There'll be lots of opportunities for members to weigh in, but not just in the next few weeks, uh, actually throughout the next couple of years and into the future. And I think what you'll see is that what's happening right now will empower everybody who is involved in acupuncture education, from our members to our students to the whole infrastructure of the BARB to the colleges, um, to be able to have the maximum amount of input and communication to form that strategy and one that fits all of us. Um, I think that one thing that we face within traditional acupuncture is that we have lots of different opinions. But one of the greatest achievements that we have is that we've been able to come together and strongly unify around our common values. And I think that's something that is a really good starting point to acknowledge that uh, there's a celebration to be had, I think. I think it's a really good point to start, is celebrating what we've achieved, because sometimes it's easy for us to forget. It's easy for us to not acknowledge, particularly some people who weren't there necessarily when a lot of these organizations and institutions were formed and didn't know what it was like before and didn't know what an amazing achievement and the impact it's made since. So it's possible to start to take things for granted. So um, in this talk, we'll talk about how the British Acupuncture Accreditation Board and the British Acupuncture Council are coming together right now for this integration plan. Um, but they've always been together from the beginning. I think that's really important to note. And there's a commonality between them. They both have a birthday this year. Barb has a 35th birthday, and the British Acupuncture Council has a 30th birthday. So the Barb is the BACC's older sibling, but they come together through a similar common theme, and that's unity. Uh, 35 years ago, colleges came together to agree on a common standard for accreditation. And 30 years ago, 5 acupuncture organizations came together to agree on common standards for one acupuncture association, the British Acupuncture Council. I think it's really, really important for us to reflect on that point, because um, if we don't want to repeat the mistakes of the past, and if we want to benefit from all of the talent and effort and finances that have been put into building what we have, it's really important to realize what it is that we actually have. And to ask the question, why did those founders, some of which are in this room right now, so I'm really grateful for them to be here, but why did those founders think it was so important back then to come together? And if they did, and if it was good reasons to do that, we don't want to lose that right now. We want to preserve that. Whatever visions we have for the future builds on that. So I think it's important to start at that point. What is it that we have? And that unity, it was hard won. I've heard lots of stories, but I know how difficult it is. We know how difficult it is to bring acupuncturists to get a degree on anything. And so the achievements there were massive. And it's really heartwarming to see that cooperation spread back over that 35 years, and then 30 years of the cooperation between the two organizations, the close working relationship they've had. And the colleges, the way that they've collaborated with each other and found the common ground and helped each other grow. And that's something that's really inspiring to see CHAC work and see colleges working together. I mean, I've been to a couple of BAAB board meetings now, and it is pretty moving. It's pretty heartwarming to see all these people coming together with the common values and the common goal. Now, the result of that has been multiple generations of graduates delivering millions of treatments to the general public. And so this is an incredible achievement too, right? So everything, I was there at Richard Blackwell's retirement party. I think they've done some kind of calculation of how many people had gone through NCA and then how many treatments they've delivered. And it was a staggering number. So I think that we have to understand that that's the end goal. That's what we're going for. And what BAcC and BAAB have achieved has enabled that. And they've achieved the gold standard in public trust. And I think, again, something to acknowledge. Sometimes it's something that we might take for granted, but the perception of the standard that we've achieved, it sometimes surprises people. It surprises me as well. We are seen as, literally, people will describe us as the gold standard, as the model across Europe. So other European organizations constantly say to us, we envy you what you've achieved, the organization that you have, the professionalism and all of this. And again, I think that we have to reflect on that. We have to acknowledge that this is a great achievement, and only by doing that can we value it. So there are some pictures here from last year's conference celebrating, and I think that that warmth that we have between us and our community is what holds us together. And it also stems from everything that we've worked for and fought for, and now at this time feeling like we have to come together and support this and stand by what's been achieved so that we can support the future. Now, our conference this year the theme is Cycles of Life. It's a very fitting theme. I really recommend everybody come along, check out our website, and we've got a great lineup. One of the big themes of the conference in Cycles of Life is not just about the clinical aspects of how we treat different cycles, but it's how we facilitate this passing of the torch from generation to generation. So at this point, considering that's our conference theme, it's an interesting question to ask, where are we in the cycle of life of the BAAB and the BAcC? We're 35 and 30 respectively. And there was an initial stage where a seed was planted and this seed germinated. And if you're a gardener, you know how difficult it is sometimes to get seeds to germinate. Sometimes they fail. It's not guaranteed. So that process has happened. We planted the seed, it's germinated, and it's grown into something of a young tree. And this young tree has been taken care of by all of us, gardeners, over the years up until now. And we only have this tree because people have continually taken care of it, watered it, pruned it, looked after it in every way, and loved and cared for it. So who are those gardeners? Well, they're our founders. As I say, the founders of the organizations who put their differences aside and came together because they realized that there's something more important than the differences. There's something, having a single community, single standards that we can project out and we can have real achievements with, I think is absolutely crucial. So the colleges, and I think some of our biggest thanks and our biggest appreciation must go to the colleges. The colleges are the ones who it's not easy to run a college, as I'm sure many people will attest to here. It's actually an incredibly difficult job, sometimes a thankless job, but it's essential. And to run an accredited college means that you've been taking the most responsible route through, and finding a way to do that in a landscape which sometimes is difficult to compete in, if not everybody is taking that responsible route. And on top of that, the colleges have not only held the door open all those graduates throughout the years, they have managed to collaborate with each other, as I mentioned, with the Council of Heads of Acupuncture Colleges, and work together to support each other. And again, that is no mean feat. There are many industries where everyone sees each other purely as competitors, and that's not possible. But this is something that is really special about our community and has to be celebrated. And then all the teachers, all the founders and the teachers of these colleges, the successive teachers, and the students. And as I say students, that's many of you, including me, because unless you graduated over 35 years ago, which some people did, you graduated from a BAAB accredited college because you're here. And that means your dedication coming through the colleges and your values that took you through. And then on top of that, we have the BAAB itself, the successive boards and staff of the BAAB giving a huge amount of their time and dedication and expertise. Everyone from the acupuncturist members to the lay educationalists and the lay expertise to the students themselves, shepherding through these colleges. And one of the unfortunate things is words like accreditation and regulation aren't the most exciting words to the average person. But I think that when we use those words, we don't actually talk about the human side of it and the values and the importance of the people who understand why they're important, what they're supporting, that they support this whole infrastructure that we all benefit from. And then there's the BAcC, successive boards and staff of the BAcC who have collaborated with BAAB. And as you'll see, the standards are interwoven. And ultimately, it's you, the members, because you have supported the BAcC. The BAcC has funded the BAAB majority of the fees from its inception all the way through. That means your fees have held the door open for future generations. You've taken the responsible action of supporting this whole infrastructure. And it's also your guidance and your values and your practice, upholding those practice standards, modeling the possibilities for future generations. Whether you're involved in teaching or not, you are a model. You are an inspiration for the students. Very often students study because they've had great treatments. And that's the way they come through. So this is a whole community, and we've supported what we've had. We've built what we have. Now, this is a talk about vision, and we'll get to that in a moment. But where does this vision come from? So some of you may know that at our conference last year, we ran a student vision board initiative where all the colleges were encouraged, students from each of the colleges, to come together and create a vision board to help communicate their hopes and dreams and visions for the future to both the BAcC and the BAAB. Also, the RCHM and the EHTPA was involved too. And the colleges came together, did an amazing job. The students did an amazing job. And I just want to highlight some of the things that they said, because again, the students weren't given any guidance of what to say. This is what they came up with organically. And what's interesting is how kind of core and common those organic suggestions are to all of us, and that they really resonate with the core visions of what we're all trying to achieve. So there's Rev Deb with her vision board that she made on site in her session at the conference, and here are some students down below. And there's Sarah Major as well, who's on the governing board at ICOM, but also BAcC director. So City College, they made this very creative message in a bottle. Some of the things, I've just highlighted some of the things they've said, to make acupuncture available to everyone, to get to the place where people think of they're going to their acupuncturist more than to their GP, when people are connected to nature because they know they're part of nature. Kickham, very creative again. The class were invited to write their messages and attach them to seeds. So there's kind of seeds of inspiration, or seeds that could grow into something, where they're nuts here. One day, acupuncture to be offered in schools. I hope a new generation of inspiring people can turn into lecturers for future students. So the students are thinking about the future and continuity of the school, which is a beautiful thing. And I'd like to see more multi-beds. ICOM made the largest poster. It was really hard to print. It was absolutely massive. But some of the things here, and by the way, these are all up on the BAcC website. So you can, if you search on the news section for vision boards, you'll find them. So you can look at them in detail if you like. Combining acupuncture with NHS treatments, accessibility for people on a low income to be considered mainstream medicine. So again, the other colleges, Acupuncture Academy, Lincoln, Northern College, we have all of these beautiful suggestions. Again, collaborations, NHS, local delivery, community outreach. you can see that there's a lot of themes which are in common here. There are a lot of things are coming up again, again, and again. So if I draw out some of the themes, having read all the student visions, these are things that came up again and again, that more recognition and respect, more integration, and that's integration into, say, the public sector with the NHS, but also into the private sector, private healthcare insurance, having a successful career. I think it's something that really comes back, and it's really core to our future and to our future vision. Support of the tradition itself. So actually making sure that the traditional side of acupuncture is preserved in all of the ways, through future teaching, but also through supporting this pathway that we have, this 3-year pathway that gives real respect to the length of time it takes to learn our deep tradition. And really a key one that comes across everywhere, and ultimately many would argue this is the most important thing, is in the end delivery of care to those who need it. And I think that one of the things that I find in speaking to members and students, the thing that comes back more and more is, I want this medicine to get out to people irrespective of their means, and the care to get to the people who most need it. And ultimately, the decisions that we make now, and that means the BAcC and the BAAB, and what we choose, the values we choose to uphold, and the things that we choose to support into the future, will make the difference of whether people who need care get it or not. And I think that one of the things that really landed with me when my grandmother had a stroke, she spent about 10 years in a care home. And every time I went to see her, I would walk through the care home. She was at the other end. And just the amount of suffering you walk past in an old people's home, and you realize that this is just one in the entire country. And just when we think about the elderly with an aging population, just the level of untreated discomfort and suffering there is just in the elderly in the country is just overwhelming. And we know how much of that can be treated. And I think that when we think about these things, sometimes we can think about them on a theoretical level. We can get caught in the theory, we can get caught in technicalities and things like that. We put all of that aside. Decisions that we make right now mean the difference between people having their suffering alleviated and having the care they need or not. So it's interesting that these things, and again, I really just pulled these from the things that came out from common student suggestions, are really the essence of what we're trying to do here. And it's the essence of this move for integration of BAcC and BAAB. And the things that we'll talk about today are the things that will support us in being able to achieve those. And I think they're very achievable. And I think some of them we're way closer than we think. We just need to hold the line and take some judicious decisions right now. So this is what we're talking about today. Let's say our tree is 30 years old. It's got lots of potential, but we often know that actually it's really when you move into your late 30s, 40s, 50s, that you actually can really start to make a serious impact on the world. You can get better at what you do, and the things that you do really start to bear fruit. And I think that's where we are. We have a reasonably young tree, and we need to guide it now into maturity, into bearing fruit. So it's important to really reflect on what it is that we have and to preserve that. Talk about how what we have preserves our tradition, how we create trust. And then we're going to move on to what's happening now. I'll hand over to Nina, and she'll be talking about the integration of BAAB and what to expect. And then we'll talk about the vision for the future and realizing our potential. And at the end, you'll have your say. And there's lots of ways that you'll be able to have your say, including a Q&A at the end of this presentation. So we invite your feedback. So to start with, I think that it's important to highlight that when someone goes through their educational journey, there are many different ways of breaking it down. But one way of looking at it is that you're going on 2 journeys at the same time. One journey is that you're going on a journey to learn the art and science of practicing traditional acupuncture, all the depth of it, the depth of our tradition, to become an effective practitioner. In some ways, that may not have changed that much in a couple of thousand years. this part of it, this traditional journey, but giving the time, giving the space for people to develop those skills. But we're also developing in another way. We're developing our students, and we're developing ourselves into becoming a trusted healthcare practitioner. And with this journey, learning how to be a safe practitioner, a professional practitioner, responsible practitioner, also to open ourselves to research and evidence-based medicine. This helps us to find a place in the world as it is in the UK in 2025. And matching the standards that are understandable to the world in 2025 enables us to be successful, enables us to be trusted, and it enables us to form a community where we can all uphold those standards and that we can align around our values. Now, I've put these in two different columns. Of course, they're not completely separate. Our tradition has those values baked into it. And that trusted healthcare practitioner journey embodies those values and can help enhance the traditional aspects of what we do too. So they are merged in many different ways. But I think it's just important to have an idea that we're on these two different journeys, and they both generate something that's really important. That traditional journey generates our effectiveness as a practitioner, and the trusted healthcare practitioner journey enables us to project ourselves into the world and be accepted and open all the doors to public trust, government trust, and opportunities in the NHS, more acceptance into private healthcare insurance, and a whole host of trusted aspects. And so, as I say, those two things go hand in hand. One is more about us setting internal standards, which have been beautifully set in these amazing documents like the Standards of Practice of Acupuncture and the Standards of Education. Actually, you're going to have to let me know that acronym, the SETAP standards and the Accreditation Manual. But also these external standards which we set in order that the journey that we're taking our students on means you come into a pool of people with an identity which is trusted in the wider world. And then that's what gets us the progress that we can make to all of those visions that the students had and that align with our values. And you may have seen this in the previous talk. If you want to have more detail about this, I recommend the talk that I made, the BAcC Direct talk on the trust that we project as members. But effectively, this accreditation journey, this accreditation, the BAAB standards for education, enables us, once we graduated, to be in this trusted community. All of the associations and organizations, institutions in this picture, the vast majority of them only have a relationship with the BAcC, not other organizations, because of that trust, because of that those standards that we match, starting with our education and going all the way through regulation. That includes having a direct link to the practitioner search on the BAcC database from the NHS website, the only organization that has. That includes us being permitted to be employed by the NHS, being referred to by the General Medical Council, being on healthcare, being one of the only voluntary regulated organizations on the BAAB cash plans, for example. All those patient advocacy charities at the bottom there, they all link back to the BAcC practitioner search by virtue of our trusted accredited status, and trusted regulatory status, foundation of which is our BAAB accreditation. And I think sometimes, as I say, when we talk about accreditation, it seems like a boring word, but the point of it is this, that standard enables us, connects all the way through to us being part of this trusted community. And it's only being part, the more of these associations that we have with the trusted healthcare community in the UK, the more those doors can open and the more progress we can make. And it's iterative, it builds up over time. And we've achieved a huge amount. So again, that webinar that I did on trust and the trust that we create as projectors members, I'll go into this in more detail. I won't go into a huge amount of detail here, but that trust is built up through regulation. And the regulation is built up through a number of different pillars. And accreditation and education is the first one. There's the BAAB Accreditation Handbook. And there's a number of limbs of that accreditation, again, and regulation that we have that I go through in that webinar more, but the BAcC upholds those, and the BAcC regulates its members. And through successive strands and rings of regulation, so voluntary regulation at the base, supporting our members to uphold those standards, a governance layer around that to check that we're doing the work, and then the independent accreditation of the PSA at the top. This is how trust is generated. So what are the standards? So we have these standards are laid out in the number of different documents, all that link to each other. That's the standards of practice of acupuncture and the educational standards of the BAcC, both BAcC documents. And that informs the BAAB's accreditation standards. And as you can see here, one's on the left, more to do with the actual treatments and the treatment skills. And then we've got ones that are values, that we're creating practitioners who are competent, trusted healthcare practitioners. And the combination of these values makes us unique. It makes us unique because we have the deepest training and the deepest traditional side, but we also have that trusted healthcare side. So there's that trust and there's the tradition. Later on this year, we'll be talking about our Acupuncture Awareness Week, which will be enabling us, enabling our members to project both of those unique points, unique selling points, if you like, that we are the most trusted healthcare practitioners in the acupuncture world, at the same time as having the deepest tradition. And there is no other body that has that combination. And that's who we are. And it's important to realize who we are. So these are the standards. So you have the educational standards, the British Acupuncture Council, the standards of practice of acupuncture, and those form the basis for BAAB accreditation. But it's actually more than that. All of our codes of practice and all of the experiences that our members in the BAcC have in their practice, all of the difficulties and the challenges, they get fed back through the BAcC to the BAAB, and then the BAAB feeds that to the colleges and helps the colleges to prepare students for the realities of practice. So in reality, the BAcC and BAAB have been this single network. The way that they operate has, even though they're two distinct bodies, two distinct companies, the way that they've practically worked has been hand in hand. And the chair of the board and lead accreditation officer have always attended the BAcC board meetings. And the BAcC have always had representatives on the BAAB board and have always attended BAAB board meetings. So there's just been a close, and it's not just that, not just those meetings. The staff continue to communicate and assist each other. And as I've mentioned before, the BAcC has been the lead funder of BAAB all the way through. So there has been this very close relationship between the two organizations all the way through. And unless you're involved in it in some way, you may not see it. And it's been a privilege as coming in as CEO of the BAcC for me to see it. But what we have right now in the development of these standards and development of our procedures represents decades of time and expertise. It represents decades of member investment, the decades of members' fees, building all this structure up and supporting it. And it's only these infrastructures that have the knowledge and infrastructure to maintain these standards and maintain these processes. So while it might look like a stack of documents, which you could just take away and transplant and reproduce somewhere else, the reality is you can't. The reality is that this institutional knowledge of decades of passing the torch, it's held in our community, it's held in us, and it's here. And this is one of the reasons why a good number of us, including me, feel like it's really important to stick up for the BAcC right now and stick up for the BAAB because of what's been achieved. And it's really important for us to hold that going forward, because to lose it right now is a lot of us don't maybe appreciate the amount that we're holding, the door open for the future, and the amount that we're supporting the current favorable state that we have in our profession. So our level is level 6 in education. Without going into a lot of detail, this standard is held by the BAAB. A program must offer a final award, which is at least level 6 on the Framework for Higher Education Qualifications published by the Quality Assurance Agency. And what does that mean? Well, level 6 is the equivalent of these things here. So that's why we say degree level. That's what level 6 is. But what does that mean? Why do we uphold level 6? Well, level 6 is differentiated from a pure technical level because we're not just technicians. We're not just operators of needles. Sure, you can learn a lot of the technical skill to be an acupuncturist, but that doesn't make you a medical practitioner. A medical practitioner has to have critical thinking. They need to be able to apply that critical thinking in a practical situation. And they need to understand things like research. They need to be able to critically evaluate things. This is completely understood within the professional community. And I think that it may be not understood how important that is if we want to be seen as medical practitioners, because I haven't met, no matter their individual opinion, I haven't met an acupuncturist, traditional acupuncturist, who doesn't believe themselves to be a serious medical practitioner. That's who we are. And if we want to be taken seriously, we have to match that level 6, because that's the way that we project to the world that we have the qualities to become a medical practitioner. It builds trust in institutions, government, and the NHS. It's a recognizable standard. It's something that goes across the regulated health professionals. It gives you medical credibility. That's our level 6. And if we lose that, we lose a whole part of our future. We're not just technicians. We're medical practitioners. So this is, we need, and we know, the ones of us that know and have been aware of the great achievements in research that have been made over the decades, people like Hugh Macpherson, George Lewis, countless people, the colleges themselves holding that space, that research space. Unless we have that level in our education, we're also not bringing up students into research, and we're not having generations coming in to do that incredibly important work to help push things forward on every single level. Because whether we're interested in research or not, that's the currency. That's the language that the world speaks. And if we want to push things forward, we need to speak that language. I just went to the World Federation of Acupuncture and Moxibustion Societies last year, and there was a lady who's the head of the Royal College of Physicians, Gillian Lang, and she came to that conference, and she spoke really favorably about acupuncture, but every time she mentioned acupuncture, she felt it very important to say evidence-based acupuncture. And I think that it's one thing that gives people permission to support us. So I think that the research in evidence base is absolutely core. It's core to the BAAB and it's core to the BAcC. It's in our objects research. So public trust protects our tradition. And that's something that is where these two things come together. So that projection into the world of this trust, it's something that we think that these two things might be really different. You know, proving it to the world in the world's way of thinking and learning the tradition in itself, actually there's a point where they come together. Because if we are not able to be seen as credible medical practitioners, and that all rests on our education and our accreditation, traditional acupuncture won't get a voice in the room. Acupuncture is going places. Acupuncture is so universally accepted in theory in people's minds nowadays. It's mind-blowing. I don't remember the last time I've met somebody who doesn't believe at least acupuncture has some kind of effect. So acupuncture is going places, but the only way that we get the voice for traditional acupuncture, which a lot of people do not differentiate in their minds. They just see the needles. They don't see the value of having in-depth traditional training. The only way we get that message out there and be part of the conversation is to tick all those boxes for that public projection of trust. And that comes from our professional standards authority accreditation. It comes from the standards that we're matching within our accreditation. It comes with the regulatory standards that we have, and it creates that trust cloud. It gets us in the room. And just to give you a sense of that, obviously, we mentioned all of these partners, which it's only because of that they want to align with us. But this is a list of people in a PSA meeting that I was invited to last year. And the PSA have a number of these meetings across the year. Now, the PSA are they don't only run this accredited register scheme for voluntary regulation, they also regulate the regulators. They give advice to regulators. And so they have these meetings across the year and they invite us to them. This was a meeting in Wales. You can see that I was there at the top, the Chief Executive of British Acupuncture Council. But look who else was there. The Chief Pharmaceutical Officer of Wales, the Chief Nursing Officer for Wales, all these directors of different boards and organisations, the Director of People and Organisation Development, Public Health Wales, Associate Director of Nursing, Royal College of Nursing. It was us in the room. That means that traditional acupuncture, you are being represented in that room and traditional acupuncture is there. It's not just going to be physios. It's not just going to be Western doctors using acupuncture. It's going to be us. And that's the only way we get that voice in the room is if we all come together, one single community, one standard, and we preserve that into the future. And just to underline that, and just the short time I've been on board, about 8.5 months, I managed to, again, through your dedication and your values, your commitment to coming here and being part of this community, it's meant that people want to connect to the British Acupuncture Council. I've managed to meet 2 high-level people in the WHO. There's the Assistant Director General and partner with heads of colleges in head of the main Chinese Medicine College in Taiwan, the leading researchers in the field in the UK and around the world. This is something that this status enables us to form those relationships, and those relationships create the opportunities. So coming back to those visions, you can see that this collaboration is essential. And what we've achieved so far is essential to achieving all of those different things. And we'll go back to this list a little bit later on. But for now, I want to hand over to Nina, who will take us through what's happening now and the developments of taking BAAB and BAcC and what we can achieve to the next stage.
Thanks,
so just hold on one second, Nina. I'll just unpin myself and pin you, and then I will hand over.
I was hoping I was going to get away with that. It would stay pinned on you, but that's
you are now pinned.
Before I start, I'm just going to say I was absolutely impressed with Alex that he even attempted the setup acronym. I lead BAAB operationally, and even I can't always remember. They are a mouthful, and my vision for education is that we simplify that setup. But it stands for the Standards of Education and Training in Acupuncture Programs, just in case anyone's interested. So what's happening now? We're coming together. We'll touch on timelines later, but both boards, organisations have decided that the time is right to be one organisation. As Alex said, we're 30, we're ready to bear fruit. So we're bringing BAAB's primary purpose, ensuring excellence in acupuncture education, into BAcC's strategic aim, that of upholding and benchmarking the standards of education and practice. They've always been aligned, now they will be together. Next slide, please, Alex. Thank you. So there have been discussions over many years, and there will be people here today that have been involved with those discussions. As Alex says, this is not a new idea. We know that we're standing on the shoulders of giants, and those giants have informed our current discussions. The time and the landscape hasn't been right up until now. but it is now. And since this time last year, the then Chair and CEO of BAcC and Ray Playford, who's the chair of BAAB's board, and myself, we sat down to consider the possibilities for integration as an option. And those discussions continued in earnest once Alex joined as CEO. This isn't something, though, that's just the brainchild of a small group. The discussions have included members, those who sit on the BAcC governing board, those who sit on BAAB's board, our committees, staff, the colleges directly and through their representation as part of BAcC. They sit on BAAB's board. We have student acupuncturists on our board. They've also been involved in these conversations, and we've spoken directly to them. The process has moved from agreement in principle to exploring what that integration might look like, to developing a working plan with associated timelines, refining that plan, making sure that everybody that had been involved in those discussions felt that we were ready to move forward. And those proposals covered everything from standard setting, the processes, resources, staffing. Everything was considered, and they were eventually signed off at the end of last year. So just at the end of 2024, when we were satisfied collectively that we had the best model possible to go forward. Next slide, I think. Lovely. So why now? Our rationale was simple. Firstly, it brings us in line with all other health professions. The model of education being at the centre and central to professional bodies' priorities within health and social care is well established. While our two organisations have always worked together, we have always been, up until this point, two distinct organisations. And with two distinct organisations, while it hasn't happened, it has the potential to have slightly different priorities. And that's a risk. Even when you are the most collaborative of organisations that you can be. So this model, bringing education together, it puts education at the heart of everything that BAcC does. It's straightforward. BAcC and BAAB have worked together hand in hand since BAcC's inception 30 years ago. Alex has mentioned it, our standards are written together. The majority of BAAB's funding comes from BAcC. And when we've talked to members, even through this process, lots of members didn't even know that we were separate organisations. So this brings clarity. And the reason that education within a membership body is the prevailing model is because it brings a strength to it. Yes, there are savings and there are operational advantages, but what it actually brings is a bigger team, a united team, a greater collective that's able to develop and sustain more, whether that's campaigns, projects, work that's being doing, and the accreditation activity itself. And it gives us a powerful voice. Alex's, slides that he's just shown are, they're typifying that. It's an absolute strength when you have one voice in the room together. And that strength in the collective, strength in ability, strength in the team, it is of benefit in terms of supporting the colleges that we accredit. Now, to give you an example, we already accredit staff from BAcC. When we accredit colleges, staff from BAcC come out with us to ensure that the standards around the clinics and the clinical standards are met. When we come together as one team, it will make managing all of that activity much more straightforward and much more meaningful. It will give us the opportunity to move ahead with some ambitious projects and an ambitious vision for education that separately we wouldn't be able to do, but collectively with the strength together, we'll be able to work together and move that vision forward. Can we move on to them? Lovely. Thank you. And it really comes back to this. Coming together just means having one voice, whether that's one voice for the students, public, government, media, NHS, wherever we are representing acupuncture, all of these external stakeholders, I don't like that word, all of these partners and people that we're working with will have a better and a greater understanding of what acupuncture is, the depth and the depth of the training, the trusted professional standards that we're upholding, will have the power with one voice to move forward. So what is that model going to look like? Well, for anybody who already knows what BAAB does or who is involved with BAcC, you may already feel familiar with, and this will look familiar to you. You might even say there's no change, and you'd be right in the main. BAcC have opted for a model that duplicates what BAAB is currently doing, because BAAB's model is recognised to be the right model for managing accreditation activity. And it is the same model that every other healthcare professional body and regulator uses. The slight difference is that BAAB's board will no longer have to worry about managing all of the governance and administration that comes with being a separate company. And it will become the Education Committee with delegated responsibility from BACC's governing board to oversee the strategic priorities around education that's set by BACC's governing board and informed by you. And then BACC's new accreditation committee is an exact replica of BAAB's accreditation committee, and that will be handling all of the day-to-day activity around supporting the colleges to develop and to innovate and to evolve, whether that's through carrying out annual monitoring of the colleges, working with new courses who may be looking to be accredited, or working with the established colleges as they develop and move their programs on. So why this proposed model? I've already touched on this. That BAAB's current model is the standard that you see within every other regulator and professional body. One that's underpinned by the standards that Alex has talked about earlier. It's robust, and its robustness has been tested. I'm not quite a 30-year-old tree, but I've been involved with education within healthcare for coming up to those years, but it works. The QAA commended BAAB at its most recent review. It's identical to the way that the GMC, the NMC, the HCPC work, and it's recognised by the PSA, who regulate all of those other bodies. What those of you who are for colleges might be really pleased to know is that because the Education Committee and because BACC have decided that the Education Committee will have that delegated responsibility, it will retain its independence of decision making, meaning that you, the public, the colleges, students, anybody thinking about studying acupuncture can trust its decision making. It's been set up to avoid conflicts of interest. Next, lovely. And that's important. The external world around us must have confidence in any professional body's processes and operation. And the model that BACC are looking to to take on has been tried and tested and has been recognised. It will maintain the PSA's confidence. It will retain the reputation with the universities who independently validate some of our acupuncture colleges. From a reputational perspective, the robustness of what BAcC does matters, and the processes that we're adopting will provide that robustness. By adopting a really straightforward wholesale adoption of all of BAAB's processes and its experience and its expertise, BAcC is making sure that it's putting education on the firmest of footings. And these standards, as Alex talked about earlier in the presentation, they've been built by standing on the experience of educational giants that have been within acupuncture since long before the two of us ever came into our current roles. And we're looking to retain all of that. Now, in terms of our name and branding, we've made a decision that you won't see a change for the first year that BAAB is integrating. The staff team will be taking time to settle in. There's lots of really exciting work that will be going on in BAcC in terms of strategic planning and embedding education. So what we want to do is to be able to give some time to be able to move things over before any decision is made about names. It's also allowing, and these are Alex's words rather than mine, because it sounds a bit like I'm, because I realised I work for BAAB, but it's allowing BAcC to make the most of BAAB's reputation and its name and all that it stood for the last 35 years, and to bring all of that over before it makes a decision about how it evolves. And it will help us, it will give us the space to be able to learn and to make the right decision about what it becomes a year down the line. In terms of our timeline for going forward, there's been so much going on. It's been a really exciting 2024. It was all about agreeing the model. It was all about working through that with as the boards and with the colleges and with the student panel at BAAB. We're now into the implementation phase. We've obviously we've just announced it. We've got lots of logistics to manage from just both organisations in terms of how you manage transfer of assets, the process of staff transferring, but we're hoping that all going well with this phase will be one team, and with we hope all of us integrating into the BAcC team by the end of this year. And that's where it gets really, really exciting. We'll be one voice, one team, bringing you into that conversation, having conversations about what that vision will be. We'll have the resources and the capacity to dream big with you. And that's the point of this webinar. And that's the point of Alex and I coming together to share our excitement and to start that conversation, because it's about what happens next. And we already have the firm footing to be able to put the education is on. This is just a springboard. Now I'm going to hand back over to Alex. Thanks,
Nina. Fantastic. So just a few final words, because this is a talk about visions, right? So we're going to what is our vision for 1 second. Am I pin myself? There we go. Okay. So yeah, well, what can you expect going forward? Well, as Nina said, for a large part, you may not notice anything actually change, because the BAAB board will be really called something like the Education Committee. We haven't finalized the names, but it will meet in a very similar form. And the chair of that education board will sit will attend the BAcC board meetings just in the same way as the current chair, Ray, attends the BAcC board meetings. So because we're preserving a huge amount of the operations, it's going to look similar. But here's the thing: if I boil it down, so Nina and I, our positions are executive positions, as in we execute the will of our boards, and the BAcC board is elected by you, the members. So we're effectively your servants. We try and deliver what your will is. And so we've come on, and this has been decided, and we both think it's a fantastic decision. And we laid out some of the reasons why it's been done. But the interesting thing that only Nina and I know is the enormous numbers of conversations that Nina and I have had, and how we feel that what we're going to be able to achieve together when we are basically on the same staff team will be huge, because we're not thinking in terms of two separate bodies anymore. We're thinking about how we can collaborate and leverage both of our skills. As you know, I'm a practitioner. I've come in, I've accumulated some CEO experience and then became the BAcC CEO. Nina has come from her high-level work in the Chartered Society of Physiotherapy and all of that background, that professional background. What we're finding is that when the two of us are having conversations about things, we're firing off each other, and we both fill in parts of the picture. And this is the thing that we're most excited about going forward, is the things that we'll be able to achieve. So what are they? Well, as I say, I think that when we're talking about a vision, we should aim high. I think that sometimes we can start to downgrade our vision over time, but this is a really important medicine. How do we achieve the best for our community? And these visions that the students came up with, they really are the ones that, if I had to make a list, it would be somewhere along this line. I think a lot of people would make it along these lines. But we came to this, Nina gave this slide of having the one voice. Well, what does it mean in practice? What does it actually mean when we go forward? So what it will mean is that the thing that sometimes has been falling between two stools a little bit with the BAAB and BAcC is, for example, how do we join together to promote the value proposition to prospective students to say, come on an accredited course and go through this pathway to becoming a practitioner? Because it's not just a value proposition from the BAAB to say, these courses are reliable, they're best, they're most in-depth training, they have the highest standards. It's also the BAcC to say, this is where you're going to end up. You're going to end up in this community with this identity, this trusted identity, within this supportive community that's going to support you all the way through, and all the way through your career. And those are two messages which should be joined up. And when we come together, they will be joined up, and we will maybe more effectively for a long time, the two of us be able to, and the whole organization be able to actually push that message out to prospective students and support the colleges and support the message the colleges are doing, support the work the colleges are doing to uphold the standards, and we'll have much more improved information for students to come onto those courses. With that, so we can communicate the value of the accredited courses to the public. We can, on the other hand, how much does the BAcC communicate effectively the value of our training and education to the public at the other end, to the prospective patients? So now this union means the BAAB and the BAAB function can assist the BAcC to communicate the value of education and get that message out to patients, so they're making the right choices for our practitioners. So having that joined up organization, I can tell you it makes a huge difference when you're on the same staff team, when people are attending the same staff meetings, when we're all aware of what each other is doing, not just at quarterly board meetings, but all the way through. And that the BAcC comms team, we've got two brilliant new members of our comms team who we've recruited. They will be thinking about this end to end. They won't just be thinking about the BAcC, they'll be thinking about the entire structure. The government will be able to have a simplified message of who we are and what the standard is. They're not wrestling with lots of different names. They know who we are. They know what our standards are. And we're matching those standards across the industry. Same to the media, simpler targeted messaging to the media and to the NHS, more opportunities through this established standard. And if anyone knows anything about the Inner Gloucester project, it made all the difference. The trusted standard, all of the things we talked about today. I've spoken to the primary care network manager who made that project happen in Inner Gloucester, our ear acupuncture for anxiety project, funded on the NHS. She said it only happened because of that trusted standard. It only happened because of that, and it would not have happened if it didn't. And very interesting to hear her thoughts on that. And the interesting thing is that the value proposition that we're trying to put together here about the quality of who we are and what we're trying to uphold, it's actually the same for all of these groups. All of these groups need to understand that we have this gold standard and I trusted identity, and just a trusted identity, but also the depth of our traditional skill. Those two things together is what makes us unique. It's the gold standard, and it's the gold standard that's respected across Europe. It's the gold standard that is respected across all of these organizations. Even today, I had a meeting with someone from the World Health Organization. Again, they understand. This is the language that they speak, and there's going to be exciting things to announce and talk about the World Health Organization going forward as well. So watch this space. So finally, what Anina and I also really focused on, well, it's this topic, careers. I think that if there's one area which is not nearly as developed as we all hope it would be, and the possibility, it's careers in acupuncture. It's something that comes up time and time again. And that's your career from when the first moment that you consider studying acupuncture to think, what is my career opportunities here? All the way through being a new practitioner, established practitioner, and then how do I retire? And by the way, we'll be talking about retirement. It's partly this year as well, because no one ever talks about it. So again, with that combined organization, we'll be able to talk about and we'll be able to tackle this difficult area of careers, because all that communication will be coming into one body, all from our membership, from our students, from our teachers, and hopefully all of us can work together to improve clear career pathways. We'll be exploring different funding models for education. We'll be thinking about, some people want to make their career in the private sector. They prefer the private sector. They prefer the freedom. Some people just absolutely passionate about being in the public sector. Some people in between, and lots of different ways that people practice. But there are people who find great success in their way of practice, and there are people who find great challenges. Can we learn from the ones that make a success, whichever style, whichever venue that they practice in? That's what we'll be working on. We'll be looking at how people develop throughout their career, apprenticeships and on-the-job training. So again, this is something that we'll be actively developing, actively working on. And it's something that I think that the more that we can find good support for members and students and good solutions, the more it's just going to make every other single problem that we face, every other single challenge, find solutions for that challenge and support that solution. So just to finally say that all of this conversation comes right into our conference, Cycles of Life. It's all about the phases of us in our practice, the cycles that we treat in our clinic. It will celebrate the diversity of our approaches, but also us being able to come together, because ultimately the conference is about coming together. We'll have opportunities to connect across generations, because it's something that sometimes, do we do enough? Do we have the facility for people to connect with the membership, not just in your strata, not just in your graduating year, but all the way through from student to long established member? And there'll be lots of opportunities at the conference to do that. And of course, we'll be celebrating the BAcC 30th anniversary there too. And we coming together, we'll have these roundtables at the conference. We're going to have one on rhythms, one on comparing pediatrics to geriatrics, one, as I've said, on this amazing topic of how we retire as practitioners. Really important subject, and again, something that respects that whole evolution of a practitioner all through all the cycles. And the final one will be one about looking to the future. So if you want to weigh in, this is a roundtable where we're going to bring together some of the really key people and organizations on a mega roundtable to have a really future vision discussion. Already confirmed will be people from the BAcC, people from the RCHM, people from the ETCMA, and we've got some exciting other people to announce as well on that roundtable at the conference. Brilliant, nice venue, on-site accommodation. It's green and fresh. It's totally set up for us to actually really truly come together. So I really hope that people will consider coming to the conference this year. That's the URL. It's up on our website. So opening up to you now. So there are a number of ways that you can feed into this, because we want every member to be able to have their say and weight. And as I say, this is the start of a conversation. So next week we have a community conversation where we'll have small group discussions on education. We'll be talking about everything from careers to coming together when we have diverse ideas about our practice, how we move towards excellence within our careers, and how we support students through their study. Because, as I say, part of that career discussion is about the difficulty nowadays it is to find the finances and to support yourself through college, and how we can think about that. So these are all areas that we want your input on, and we'd like to come together in small groups and discuss this. And this is something that will be happening more and more with the BAcC and the BAAB, is opening out this discussion to the members. We know that we don't have all the answers. As a community, we do. So we'll be able to come together and bring those together.